Now, despite the fact that it is a state funeral, Raila Odinga's final journey has been characterized by cultural practices associated with Luo funeral ceremonies. From the breaking of the news of the death to identifying the burial site, wailing to mourn the dead to cleaning of the homestead after burial, the Luo community has a unique way of showing their last respects to their departed loved ones. A tradition held in high regard for generations that has since played out in the final journey of Raila Odinga, a man of great stature, an elder and a celebrated icon within the larger Nyanza region. Safin Achieng Oma shares insights of the cultural aspects of Luo funerals.
As soon as the news of the death of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga broke, friends, family, relatives, and thousands of his supporters broke in wailing. An expression of intense grief and deep emotional pain, a death wail, a significant part of the Luo customs and traditions of sending off a departed soul. A funeral ceremony, popularly known as Liel, in the Luo community is held in high regard because Luos consider death an important part of somebody's life. Though culture has been greatly influenced by geographical position, religion and modernization, certain critical steps must be followed in Luo rituals of death. The first stage is the death announcement, known as Kelo Yuak, where a selected member of the family officially brings the news of death to open the home for mourning. After the acceptance of death, an important meeting is held by close relatives, commonly known as Anyuola, to discuss the burial plans. Critical aspects like the burial site, date, and rites to be performed are agreed upon. Once the burial site is identified, the digging of the grave begins in a process popularly known as kunyo. Raila Odinga's family agreed to bury him near his late father, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, at the Kango Kajaramogi homestead in Bondo. His elder brother and Siaya Senator Oburu Odinga, as per tradition, represented the family to be the first to dig the grave. Selected young men in the village would then take over and finish the digging of the grave. Back in the day, bodies were not taken to the mortuary, so mourners will kickstart vigils, also known as budo, as they wait to bury the departed. But with modernization, the vigil would continue at the homestead of the departed as his or her body is being preserved at the mortuary. Luo funerals, especially for a man of the stature of Raila Odinga, can take possibly between 3 to 4 weeks. It is no wonder that his request for a 72-hour timeline for burial came as a shock to many. When the family is ready for the burial, the body is usually removed from the mortuary a day before the burial date in a ceremony known as Golo. Golo is simply a funeral procession to the homestead of the late, where mourners turn out in their numbers for the final journey, wailing, chanting praises and carrying leaves, typically known as oboke, to express their grief. This is followed by the viewing of the body, which is held in high regard within the Luo community, for mourners to find closure that indeed death has occurred. The timelines for Raila Odinga's funeral procession may have varied considering his stature in the country, which meant that the committee in charge of his burial had to factor in the logistics of ferrying his body from India to Siaya and the long duration it would take for thousands of his supporters to view his body before burial. Once the body has been received at the homestead, an overnight vigil characterized by a bonfire will be held to signify the last time the dead will be spending time with his relatives. The next day, the burial ceremony, commonly known as Iko, takes place, where mourners finally send off their loved one. This is done depending on the gender, age, and the place the person being buried holds in the society. In some instances, depending on the wishes of the family, there is a traditional ceremony that is done after the burial known as teroburu, where bulls are driven in the homestead and around the grave to cleanse the home and chase the spirit of death. After the burial, some very close relatives will have to spend some days at the homestead to continue mourning. But before they finally leave, they may opt to clean the burial site in a ceremony called Yueyoliel. This is done to appease the departed by leaving him or her in a clean place. Despite the aura of grief, Luo funerals are also characterized by a lot of song, dance, and plenty of food for mourners. It is no wonder community members and friends of the family usually do, including cows to be slaughtered to feed the guests. Until his death, the former premier spoke passionately against flamboyant funeral ceremonies that often leave the bereaved family impoverished. He advocated for a swift burial, and as many may say, that even in his death, he has indeed led by example. Safin Acheng Oma, Citizen TV.